want to transition to another kind of interesting topic. There are a lot of higher seeded teams, two in particular that I want to touch on: the Memphis Grizzlies and the Dallas Mavericks, that are currently tied in their first round series 1-1. However, I think that for both of those teams, the ways in which they've gotten to this point, being tied 1-1, are drastically different. And that's why it made me think about which team I'd rather be in their position. Whose position I'd rather be in, the Mavericks or the Memphis Grizzlies, who are both tied at 1-1. Now, I think that what makes these situations in particular so much more complex is the fashions in which these teams have won and lost games, because they haven't been consistent. They have not been consistent. So, on the part of the Dallas Mavericks, for me, what's interesting about the Dallas Mavericks is they had to initially and immediately come to grips with the reality that, hey, we're not going to be playing with Luka Doncic. We don't know when he's coming back, but he's definitely missing games 1 and 2. They obviously split those first 2 games. They had to quickly galvanize and rally around one another immediately. So I think that once Luka Doncic went down, whatever expectations that they had set for themselves, that the organization had set for them, that the media had set for the Dallas Mavericks, all of those took a precipitous dive the second Luka Doncic was ruled out for game 1 and missed game 2. And so because of that, as disappointed perhaps as the Dallas Mavericks were, and as worried as we should be about the situation that they're in, the fact that they're having to play this series without Luka Doncic, I think that a similar argument can be framed that, hey, you know what? We're playing without Luka Doncic. The expectations have been sapped. Now we're kind of playing with house money. And we can go to Utah, and perhaps there's a little bit of optimism now that Luka Doncic may return. But those initial fears of humiliation and of uncertainty after dropping the first game, the fact that they weren't whole, the fact that they haven't been healthy throughout this postseason, missing their elite A-list guard / forward, whatever position you want to call Luka Doncic, he's so versatile. I think that in a lot of ways, it actually gave Dallas a pass this postseason. Now, again, it doesn't diminish the perhaps internal triage that they are kind of having to deal with, as far as, you know, their own mental state and perhaps their own expectations for their organization, for the team as a collective group. I think that fan base and the media can understand if they lose to the Utah Jazz without Luka Doncic playing in half the games. So it's a disappointing, perhaps, end to a season if they had to lose. But again, I think they're given a little bit of a pass. So that situation, to me, is a little bit more favorable than the situation for Memphis. I'm actually a little bit more concerned if I'd be the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, obviously, they quashed any concerns about game 2 and their ability to rebound after getting beaten down in game 1, 130 to 117. They demolished the Timberwolves last night by 28 points, 124 to 96. So, yes, they feel a little bit more confident going into Minnesota. But I think that Memphis is the team that needs to be worried, because if you looked at how Minnesota beat Memphis in game 1, it wasn't because Memphis's strengths didn't shine through, meaning it's not like we didn't see the depth of Memphis in game 1. You had multiple guys scoring in double digits, which is Memphis's go-to kind of move. That's the book on Memphis, is their depth. They had 11 guys score yesterday and 10 of them played legitimate minutes. That shined through in both games 1 and game 2. The difference is in game 1, Karl Anthony Towns was a monster. Defensively, Memphis doesn't really have much of an answer for him as long as Karl Anthony Towns can keep his emotions in check. Game 1, he was fantastic, 29 and 13. Game 2, he was dealing with foul trouble that kind of neutralized him. But Steven Adams and Xavier Tillman, and even Brandon Clark and Kyle Anderson to a lesser degree, when Karl Anthony Towns is engaged, they don't really have an answer for him. Steven Adams is a decent defender. Those guys collectively are solid, but they don't really have an answer for him. And Anthony Edwards, who's a burgeoning star, had 36 points on the road, fourth most playoff points in a playoff game debut in NBA history. So he's got star potential, and he's already proving he's a star. And even in game one, when you can say he had a quote-unquote bad game, he still dropped 20 points on 40% shooting, which isn't absolutely atrocious. So the reason why I'm concerned about Memphis is because here you have a team who was completely healthy, completely loaded. They played the first two games of the postseason at home with their complete roster, and they split against a young, up-and-coming, hungry Minnesota Timberwolves team who, yes, they probably had a bit of their behind taking a chunk out of last night, but they're returning back home to Minnesota where they're going to still play a lot more confidently. Coach Finch can still tell this team, hey, listen, we're tied 1-1 going back home. And if you listen to any of the pressers, Anthony Edwards doesn't look like a guy who's going to be phased being tied 1-1. Patrick Beverley isn't a guy who's going to be going anywhere. He's going to continue to be the worst knot in your back, a pesky defender, just a pest all around. John Morant, who's been excellent this postseason. John Morant's been excellent, but he still has to contend with Patrick Beverley throughout this entire postseason, at least the first round. And again, as excellent as John Morant has been, 32-8 in game one, near 23-point triple-double last night. His facilitating has been spectacular. He's been doing that all season. But I think that as great as Memphis still is as a team, the truth of the matter is John Morant, while he may be the best individual player in this series, the next two or three best players in the series belong to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, whatever order you decide between those two guys. And you can argue D'Angelo Russell are the next three best players in the series. So from a talent perspective, talent-wise, the Minnesota Timberwolves have more talent than the Memphis Grizzlies. And what we've seen throughout history in the NBA playoffs is the regular season highlights the depth of teams. The postseason highlights the star power of teams. And I know all the stats and the record about Memphis being 20-5 without John Morant. And truthfully, in game two last night, it was the bench and the depth in that second quarter allowing the Grizzlies to kind of stretch the lead. And then the beginning of the third quarter, they obviously blew them out. And that was all she wrote. But imagine what we'd be saying about this series if John Morant wasn't available. And this is why I've always had a problem with all these media experts and analysts and guys who try to kind of dock John Morant points in the MVP conversation outside of the fact that he missed games simply on the basis that, his team has a 20-5 record without him. The reality, the question you need to ask yourself is, how would we be viewing the Memphis Grizzlies in this series against the Timberwolves if they did not have John Morant? And we both know the answer to that question. The answer is 0% chance of winning this postseason first-round series if they don't have John Morant. And that's the point, is in the postseason, it comes down to the stars you have. Now, you can win individual games with that bench, and that's certainly – that's what Memphis has been able to do all season successfully. And again, I'm not saying they're going to lose this first-round series to the Timberwolves, but if you're asking me between these two situations, which one I'd rather be in, truthfully, I think that everything, the narrative, the availability of guys, the matchup, I'd rather be the Dallas Mavericks. I truly would. I think that Memphis is in for a long series, even if they are able to pull it out. Dallas may also be, but again, they're playing without Luka Doncic, so I think they naturally have a built-in pass because the Timberwolves are coming. They're feeling good, and when they return to the Target Center, it's going to be a raucous crowd. It's going to be a raucous crowd. They haven't advanced past the first round since 2004 with KG, so they're going to be excited. We saw the atmosphere against the Clippers in the play-in game, and that was a play-in game. This is for the playoffs. So again, I'm not saying Memphis isn't going to win, but I'm still a little bit worried. I still have a little bit of trepidation from that Memphis side going into the rest of the first round.